of the Tulsa County Equalization Board to order for Tuesday, June the 16th, 2021. I'll ask that the clerk call the roll.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwille,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
All present and accounted for. We have a busy agenda of protest items today. We will begin at the top of that agenda as it has been printed and distributed with 1373 and 1374. Both are listed as William K. Warren LLC. And I hear that my orange chat tells me you have an agreement. Is that correct?
Yes, Jeremy Watson, Tulsa County Assessor. We do have an agreement on 1373 in the amount of $42,800,000.
Okay, let me get that down. 42,800,000.
Yes.
Okay. I move we accept this by agreement at 42,800,000. Is there a second to my motion?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwille,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
So ordered. We have adjusted this assessment as the fair market value by agreement. Item number 1374 appears to be in agreement also. Is that true?
Yes, Jeremy Watson, Tulsa County Assessor's Office. On 1374, we've agreed to an amount of $48,500,000.
48,500,000. I move that we accept this agreement to adjust as the fair market value on this property to 48,500,000. Is there a second to my motion?
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll vote to adjust as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwille,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
Yes, this is the fair market value by agreement. Thank you, Jeremy. All right, now we got to go to telephone, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
This is for 1412.
Yes.
We just made an agreement. Oh. We just made an agreement like 2 minutes ago, so I don't think we can call her.
Do we want to call her first or? do you-
I have my emails here and stuff. We don't have to.
Well, do we have to call her for the others?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then we might as well, Debbie, you might as well go ahead and call her, get her on the phone so she knows we're dealing with all of hers, but this first one.
The first two were first too.
Is she the only one we're doing the telephone
Yes.
interview? Right. Hello. Ms. Green, this is Ted Ketchel. We're calling.
Hello, Dr. Ketchel.
Hey, I understand you have decided not to make the trip to glorious Tulsa, Oklahoma this year?
Not this year. We got home really late from a trip last night, so I
Well,
just want
that's
to try to get all that in today.
Sure. In any case, remember me, but my colleagues on the board continue to be Charles Vanderbilly and Ruth Gaines, so you may hear some questions.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Let's begin with this first item on our agenda, which is item number 1412, board. It's the RBHV Tulsa LLC. And
Okay.
my understanding, Misha, from the staff will ask her to introduce herself now, so you know who you're talking with. That you have just recently come to an agreement on this one.
That's correct.
Okay, please introduce yourself for the board.
Hi, this is Tessia Davis with the Tulsa County Assessor's Office. We have agreed for this account to a value of $7,850,000 even.
$7,850,000 even. Is that your understanding, Misha?
Yes, it is.
Okay, then I move we accept this agreement to adjust to the value on this property as $7,850,000. Is there a second to my move to adjust?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll vote to adjust as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwiller,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
This is the fair market value by agreement. Next on our agenda item is item number 1413, Village East Properties LLC. It was previously on for $4,589,000. They, after being formally reduced it to $4,225,000. Let me finish reading what is in your formal app, or at least the portion that is just what you would like. This property board is 12111 East 7th Street South here in Tulsa. She's requesting that it be reduced even further to $2,950,000. And she has attached a statement. I take it this is about construction. Is that right, Misha?
That's correct. And I'm actually valuing this together with the other Village East parcel. So the backup documentation that I provide really covers both.
Okay, and that is.
So just so you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's the next item on our agenda, TPAF 8 Tulsa LLC, is that correct?
No.
Oh, it's not? Oh, it's Village, I see, Village East Properties, you have two on the agenda, but they're separated.
Correct.
But we can deal with them in the, do you consider them an economic unit?
Correct.
Okay. I'm gonna ask the Tulsa staff, assessor staff to introduce herself and
Okay.
then we will hear what if you want to take us through this document, you've included Misha, and then we'll let her speak to the matter and come to, but introduce yourself so she knows who she's talking to.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Alcock, Tulsa County Assessor's Office.
I noticed there was another number here that said that it had been adjusted down to $4,091,300. Is that correct from the assessor, or was that just that was on my second page in the document, not hers?
That is correct. I adjusted it down approximately 10% at the informal level.
Okay, so that is the number you're actually seeking today, then, that one?
This account is difficult. I'm unable to break it apart by parcel because it's all one economic unit.
I see.
And just as Misha just agreed, we kind of have to look at these two parcels under protest from this
Together.
level together.
Okay,
I'm prepared to present it together, and I know her income approach, I believe, has both parcels on it.
Yep.
well, let me go ahead and read then for the purpose of the board now, that you two know more, but For the purpose of the board and the record, we're now moving to to include item 1415 on your agenda. In that one, it says that the property is at 1211 East 7th Street South. That initially they had it on last year, 2,449,000 even. At the informal, they reduced it to 2,180,000, and she is requesting 1,585,000, again, referencing the attachment about the construction. Now, do you want Misha to go first, or do you want?
Yeah, I can, go ahead, however we want to work it.
Okay, well, Misha, why don't you go first, and then we'll ask
Okay.
the assessor.
When I took this property over, from after the informal appeal, apparently the owner had talked to Sarah originally. And so I went ahead and put a different package together, based on some of the additional information he provided. The client indicated that when they filed all the building permits, and everything, they included soft costs, hard costs, FF&E, and everything into that value. So I went ahead, the first page on the presentation that I provided is the current value, and then the total construction cost, subtracting 10% for soft costs and the current FF&E that was filed. And that's where my requested value of $5,552,000 came in, and that's spread out between those two accounts. The other information I provided an email from the client that shows what they included in that construction value contract. And then in addition, I provided some comparables that the client felt were reasonable to use against, based by square foot instead of by unit. His argument of using square foot instead of units had to do with the fact that a lot of the other comparables had a completely different percentage of studios and one bedrooms compared to what he had. So the back pages supply the different square footages that all of the comparable properties that they noted have in it. And then the other thing I wanted to provide, I didn't provide an income because the property wasn't stable as of 1/21. It was still 22% vacant. So I didn't want to include that as an income approach as a valuation method because that's not valid for this year.
All right, I'm trying to catch up with both paperwork, but also see that the board has access to something.
Take your time.
Yeah. It's okay. It looks like we've got 2 copies, is that right, Debbie? Is that what I have of all of her package? It looks like I got 2. Now, you guys have that in yours already?
I'm looking.
Okay,
Yeah,
if you have it, and you don't need it, then, but both of these are her workups. They aren't, yet Sarah's workup aside, as far as I can see.
I have one for you.
Oh, okay, that's what I figured. That's the tax.
If
rate.
it has
What's
an
this
A,
one?
it's the
What's that?
assessor.
Oh, okay, so
That's the
this,
assessor.
that's interesting. Okay, it looked like it was the same workup. Sarah, do you recognize this?
That belongs to Ms. Breen.
That's what I thought too, yeah.
I have, do you want these right now? I was gonna wait until it was my turn, but do you
No,
want one?
no, I'm just trying to make sure that these package of paper that I have here in front of me, I know who they're from. Okay. I'll work with one and assume that we'll get it clear before we're done. Misha, I have the one that you just summarized briefly with the comparables and the construction costs and the unit
Correct.
mix comparison, right? That was
Yep.
yours?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to ask Sarah to go ahead and present her viewpoint, and then, of course, we'll go back and forth between the two of you until we feel we're prepared to make a decision, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. It appears, all I'm saying, it appears to be a copy of this. All right, Sarah, if you want to talk us through what we're looking at here, and we do have a video now on our big screen,
Oh, good.
and that's what we're talking about. These
Okay.
are the village flat apartments, is that it?
That's correct. I'd like to explain something for you before I get into the details
Sure.
of valuation. There's a few things to understand about this property that took me a minute, so I'm going to take a minute and try and explain it. Okay, so this property, the economic unit encompasses 4 parcels right here.
Just a minute, Sarah. Michi, can you hear Sarah?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, just wanted to make sure, she's so far away from the phone, I wasn't sure. That's fine, please go ahead. Sarah.
Okay,
Sorry,
I'll
just
try to
trying make
speak up.
sure.
Okay, so this economic unit known as Village Flats Apartments occupies 4 parcels. However, it's 3 buildings, okay, 3 improvements. So here we have a parcel here, parcel 2, parcel 3, parcel 4. So I don't want there to be any confusion about the fact that the larger building here lies across 2 parcels. However, the only parcels being under appeal today are this middle parcel here, the larger one, and then this one down at the bottom here. This parcel up here, the value, I guess, is agreed upon by the tax rep. She hasn't filed a formal on it.
Okay.
However, when we move forward, in terms of how I valued the property, is all as one economic unit.
So what you're saying is even though she's only protesting part of the economic unit, in terms of these 2 parcels, there are other parcels you're including in your workup, is that it?
Yes, sir. And I do have a percentage breakdown, how we have allocated the final value by income approach to each of the 3 improvements. And I can go over that with you if you wish. It might clarify things in the end a little bit.
Okay,
But just so we're understanding, we're only hearing what she's filed today, which is the larger improvement in the middle and that one on the bottom there.
now there's some white lines there, and you're saying ignore the white lines, is that it, that they
Yeah.
include a huge number, 4 rows of buildings there?
The
But
the
that's
white
not-
line around that property is irrelevant.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure,
Okay.
okay.
Now, and I want to make sure you're saying the large building in the middle. You got building A not included. And then you come to the middle, you've got building B. And you said it's both of those buildings there in the middle,
In the middle, this is one building,
okay?
and I have it labeled B on my map. I don't know why there's this A here. Let's ignore that. So yes, the improvements and property under protest would be this large building here in the middle, which spans across 2 parcels of land, and then this improvement here at the bottom. Okay.
Quick question.
Okay.
You have 2 protests filed,
Yes, sir.
number 1413 and 1415.
Yes.
Which 2 properties do those protests, or these 2 protests apply?
Okay. So
Is
if you look at the account number ending in 44500. Do you see that on the
Yes.
protest form? Okay. That's going to be the bottom one here.
Okay,
Okay. The larger improvement, the other protest filed is this one.
okay, so the bottom 2 are your protests.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Sorry, this is a little confusing, but we had to get that aired out and up front because what we're looking at today, though, is an overall value of all 4 parcels and all 3 improvements. The whole enchilada.
And you and the owner are in agreement on the big pot. I mean, that's what.
And that's correct. And actually, I do agree with that because the requested value that I have actually includes that 934,000 that's already part of that other parcel.
Okay.
The correct values that I said, the correct value that I stated on the BOE notices are the percentage breakout of the two parcels under appeal as well as that other parcel that is not under appeal.
Okay, so Misha, to clarify, you're requesting $5,649,000 for the entire economic unit, including all four parcels and all three improvements, is that correct?
Correct. That is correct. The land value is all four parcels, and I just didn't put the 930, the other improvement value on here. So that's my fault.
Okay,
But yes, but you are correct.
okay.
So the percentages that I included on the BOEs are correct for those two parcels.
Okay. So the way we're making this argument today is in a fashion in which it encompasses all the improvements as one economic unit.
Correct.
Okay. Are we all on board with that? Does Lori have any questions before we start?
Sorry.
Here's the
This
page.
is a very confusing property.
This is the page I'm looking at as her summary, as I understand it. Is that your understanding?
That is her summary, yes.
Okay. But you're saying, but you're not going to, you are going to try to speak to what you think, where she wants the 5,552,750, you have another number. But it will be comparable in terms of the properties it's covering.
Yes,
Okay.
correct. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so what happened, this might make it a little easier for you. At the informal process, I lowered the value about 10% from what it was on the notice.
Okay.
And that brought it to $7,360,000
That's all.
total, everything, okay? What she's requesting at the formal level of the board today is $5,649,000 total for everything.
Correct.
Okay. So here we have a picture of Village Flats Apartments. It's a Class A 54 unit complex. It has the very top improvement there is actually the clubhouse, and it encompasses 7 of the units. And I have the value distributed accordingly, according to how many units and how much income is attributable to each improvement, okay? So we just really need to look at it as a whole though, since we're both on the same page there. So you can see it's a full 3-story brick build out on this larger building. This big one here is the one in the center. Okay, and then this smaller picture to the right is the one being protested that's on the bottom of the screen. Or was on the bottom.
We lost it.
Okay, so this is an incredibly high quality, brand new build, very high quality interior finishes. And you'll see that that's reflected in the square foot rent price when we get to that. But on the second page here, basically this is explaining the same thing I just explained, that it is all, we can just circle that whole thing, it's all one economic unit with building A, B, and C.
Okay.
Okay. So the third page of my presentation, you'll see my breakdown on costs, my income pro forma, and I have a rent comparables summary. It's very, very difficult to find sales comparables on properties like this right now. I wasn't able to find any, but we have some rent comparables here, but we'll start with the income pro forma. I have a potential gross income of $999,624. And that's based on the rent roll that was provided at the formal level. Thank you, Misha, for that. I was actually able to adjust it according to the actual rents versus market rents. And it actually comes in within a few $1,000s of market rent. So that's a pretty stabilized figure there in terms of potential gross income. On the occupancy level, I gave it 86%. Because as of January 1, CoStar reported that it had a 14% vacancy. I know Misha stated that it had 22% vacancy as of January 1, which she says was not stabilized yet. However, they had their certificate of occupancy long before January 1 of this year. They were leasing long before January 1 of this year. To my knowledge, they began leasing April of 2020. So the fact that they were not 100% occupied doesn't have any bearing on the fact that we have to evaluate it and give a market value as stabilized, because it is occupiable. They could rent it. In other words, it's finished. So I gave it the 14% vacancy according to submarket on CoStar. Then I gave it just your standard operating expenses at 30%, management at 3%, reserves at 3%. So our total expense ratio is about 36%, which is pretty standard, maybe a little higher than average for a property like this. This property doesn't have a lot of amenities. Amenities can cost a lot of money to maintain. This property is situated right on Centennial Park. If y'all are familiar with Centennial Park, it's 100 years old, beautiful park with a pond and very popular place. So the clubhouse, in other words, faces this huge park. And I think that's kind of what their draw is. They say, oh, we don't have a lot of apartment amenities to speak of, but we have this gorgeous park with pond and tennis courts and things like that. So anyway, so I have their expenses at 36%. I applied a cap rate of 7.25, which is a little higher than what the actual cap rates are going for on sales of properties of this type. I gave it a business personal deduction of what they actually have on file, which is $227,000. So once we reduce or deduct business personal, we have a market value of $7,361,870, which when I applied that across each of the improvements, I gave 56% of that value to the big middle improvement, 13% to the clubhouse, and 30% to the bottom improvement, because that's just how it breaks out by income and exactly how much income each one of those parcels produces or improvements produces. In terms of construction cost, I don't know if I'm misreading this, but it's in Misha's packet here that she provided us. It's an email from Nathan Garrett with total permitted value, which means building permits total at 6.5 million.
This is what she's looking at now. Do you guys have access to that?
I do.
Okay, so they stated that there's an estimated construction contract value of
Look
6.5
at that
million.
next page. This is from Garrett.
Yes, and this is from Misha and Garrett. Okay, so when I calculated that, if you look at my sheet back to where I have my performa just to the right, you'll see a breakdown on cost here. And if I'm in agreement with their construction costs, which I am because I looked at the permits, and that's about right, $6.5 million is what was issued. I have to add the land value to that, which is almost $1 million. That bank of land that they had to purchase, that's value add. Then we have business personal deducted at $250,000 because he says that the $250,000 business personal was included in this $6.5 million construction contract value. So I went ahead and took that out as if it weren't there. And then if we add just a minimal profit margin of 5%, we're arriving at a $7.5 million market value by cost estimates, and I'm using what was provided by the tax rep on that, which is right in line with my income performance, 7.5 million on that. On the rent comparable summary, this is interesting here. All of these are comparables in terms of year built, area, the type of finishes that are offered, the lifestyle, et cetera. So if you scroll your eyes over to the very right column on this side here, if you can see where the rent per square foot, because if we're going to talk about square foot value, we have to talk about square foot rent. You see where Village Flats lines up about $1.97 a square foot is what they're charging on rent. Okay, and these are ordered. So their comparables are charging anywhere from $1.42 to $2 a square foot rent. They're at the higher end of what they're charging, yet here in yellow is what they're valued at. So if you can see and make a comparison, here's this property that's getting premium rent, even when you look at it against its own comparables, yet its per unit value is lower than any of them. So my argument here is that with that square foot rent price, combined with the fact that the rent comparables are coming in at a much higher per unit value than Village Flats currently is valued at. And I've got our cost estimate here from the owner and tax rep themselves. Basically, on the last page here, the assessor opinion of value is to sustain at $7,360,000. It's supported by my income pro forma, the self-reported cost of construction and land, and 5% profit, and then the square foot rent that is that they're garnering for this property is just really supports the value that it's at, if not higher.
So your total of 7,360 includes all 3 units.
All 3.
We're just looking at 2. The total that we have is less than that. Is that correct?
She's asking you to value all 3 at the $5,649,000. I'm asking you to sustain all 3 at $7,360,000.
We're just sustaining 2 today.
Formally, yes, ma'am. The other one is not under formal appeal, so it's going to stay as it is, no matter what happens today. I know it's confusing.
So if I add these 2, I got 6,245,300.
If we sustain is what she's saying.
Oh,
What's in
yes,
front of the board.
If you sustain, you will add, you will give, I'm talking in terms of appeal numbers here, or account number 44500, the one on the very bottom. If you sustain that one, it would be at 2,449,000. Oh, no, excuse me, back it up. It would be at $2,154,000.
And the other one.
The other one, if you sustained today, it would be sustained at $4,091,300. And those are both the values that I already lowered it a little bit. So yes, that's my current opinion value.
Strange, the only thing, and I don't know whether the number you're talking about just now, Sarah, does not appear on the cover sheet. It only appears on the inside, which is unusual. The board usually has one on the cover.
What are you talking about?
Well, on the formal appeal, on the 976 form, is that what you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to this. This is the form we look at. This is always what the clerk gives the board.
We don't receive that form. I don't know.
It's the next.
Well, but this is the one I signed. That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. So that's the number. If I sustain, that's the number I'm sustaining.
Yes.
And she's not saying that's the number she wants sustained. She wants this number sustained and this number
I'm
sustained.
confused.
Just a minute, Misha, we're just trying to clear up
The
paperwork.
first unit that we don't have should be 1,000,000.
Okay.
I don't sign this
We have 25. It's not included.
Okay,
one. Well, that's-
okay.
But Sarah's,
The inform on 1413 was brought down to 4,225,000.
that's not
Is that
what
correct?
Sarah just said. No.
Then your form is incorrect. What we get off your system.
Okay.
Misha, we're talking paperwork here.
Okay.
You'll get your chance to talk the numbers in a minute. It's
She should
just that
generate it.
All right.
the form I
Don't worry.
usually sign has one number different than what even Sarah's proposing is the point.
Tracy, what's the market value on, 43890 account?
On our system, we are showing the 4,091,300.
Okay,
So you all are gonna have to fix that initial.
okay. I will write it on a piece of paper for you.
It'll need to be on the
I can-
document.
Okay. Who writes it?
Who signs?
One of you from the assessor's office.
But now the thing you're correcting, yeah, you're correcting that.
What the
number, right?
informal.
What the
Okay,
informal is.
so that is 4,000,000. Let me be sure. Doing the right thing here. 4390. Okay.
So you'll mark through this and write the correct number.
You get what I was talking about.
For the adjusted value.
Is the other one correct?
Is the other one correct?
We'll go over it in a minute. Once this is really just paperwork, but it's the one I sign. And when I sign it, that's the legal document.
The address is wrong on there too.
I wonder if there was, well, 2154 is account number 44500, 2,154,000. I'm pulling that right now.
Give me the,
2, 1,
Sarah,
5,
that one is actually showing in our system, the 2 million, it's showing
that's the number it's
2,154,000.
adjusted to.
but it isn't on this page.
Right. So we're making a correction.
Well, it looks like between you guys and the clerk, you may want to revisit how you're trying to transfer that, because literally, when I sign this document, that's what will be legally binding, not what is on the paperwork that you attach. I
Right, if you
understand.
sustain, it's gonna be this number.
Right, okay.
If it's a different number, then the board will write that number in.
Yeah,
So-
we can adjust always, we do that all the time, but when we vote to sustain, it's that number. Now, we're gonna go back over this, but we have a clerk, I just said, what I'm trying to say is, since they changed the number and struck through it and initial it, then if I sustain, it will
It
be
will
a
be
handwritten. Okay. Then we're cool
There was
about the
an error in the
paperwork.
So
assessor
right now we're
system.
on 1413, is that correct?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
Which
Protest
protest
number
number?
are we on?
Well,
1413?
We're on both of them
technically,
still.
we're hearing it all together.
I understand that, but the sheet that you have, that you said had an incorrect number, what number did it have?
Okay, what, then, okay, 1415 and 1413. I'm reading now 1413 first. It's the larger number. It had in print 4,225,000, but they just changed it to what the assessor staff understood was what they agreed to after the informal, which is 4,091,300, and they initialed that change on my document.
Can you see that on there? Am I?
That is. Okay,
What is that, my definition?
okay. And the assessor's, value right now is 4,091,300.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay. And on the other one, the protest number 1415, the assessor's number after their informal, they struck through the one that was 2,180,000 and have now written in 2,154,000 and initialed it. So that's what, if we sustain, is their written in numbers. That's the point.
Well, in my, I mean, that's the numbers I have on mine, but it's not the written.
It's, well, the problem is, this is the one that
You got to live with.
we gotta live with legally if I sign it and we have sustained. That's why we had them change just now. You have the right numbers in front of you. You just do now. Yeah. It's just they weren't the right
And the right
numbers.
numbers on the second sheet are the 14, 15, what are the right numbers there?
Yeah, well, on the second sheet, you had the right.
And I'm asking what are those?
Which one did you want?
1415.
No, it's not, yeah. That was the 2,154,000. It's now been written in on the front sheet of my paper that I have to sign.
And that written in the amount is what?
The 2,154,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that was the same, what she was saying is the paperwork she's looking at is the one that is your second sheet. And it's correct.
Okay.
But the paperwork
That you
I'm
signed.
looking at and have to sign was incorrect in terms of what the assessor intended. Okay, we're all on the same page. The paperwork, we understand what we're doing if we sustain. It's not, Misha, it is clearly not what you've been asking for. I don't mean to confuse you, but I just had to get the number right on the legal document that I'm going to sign if we sustain. I can still adjust that number and write a new number in there, but I can't. But if we vote to sustain, I can't change the number if it's not the one that the assessor proposed.
I understand.
Okay. Sarah, did you need to summarize in any way? I realize this has been a confusing moment just in terms of trying to straighten out paperwork. But what you're asking, when you say you want to make a stand, Misha's, what she's asking for is that both the protests that you brought before the board today would finally end up with a value, we sustained it, of $7,360,000 when added together, those two protested properties.
Now.
That is
No,
right.
I don't think that's right.
That's what I got.
7037.
7 million, let me help you here.
7,360,000 is what I got.
That top property, that top one is almost $1 million of the 7 million I'm asking, okay? The other parcel of land that's not included is almost $200,000. So those aren't included, it's confusing, but what Misha is asking, or what I'm asking for in sustaining is to add the two together, the 2,154,000 plus 4,091,300.
Well,
That's my request
So,
on these two improvements.
why
So-
does this presentation have the other number?
What if we
That's yours.
Because I'm valuing it as a whole, I'm including in that number. Let me put it this way.
how about,
If you were to sustain the values that we discussed,
Yeah,
the entire account, all three,
yes.
would be at that $7,360,000.
what if we do? What if we were to look at it a little differently? Since we're looking at those two parcels, and I'm basically asking for a reduction in soft costs from the original construction documents that were filed. What if we took each parcel, subtract the land value, and then take 10% off the improvement value to come to a number? I mean, I'm trying to come up with different look at this. For just those two parcels. And then ignore the other two.
It's almost impossible to do that when we're
I know.
looking at
Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to come up with a different way to look at it.
Plus, I disagree with the cost argument. No offense,
Okay.
but I disagree. I think the cost shows that the property is worth what we have
Right.
valued at currently each
But
by
if-
improvement.
But as you know, in any kind of construction, in any kind of construction cost, there are going to be intangible soft costs that really should not be reflected in the actual construction value.
Well, there's also a profit margin of 5 to 15%.
Which that may or may not be, depending on how he's running his property. But again, you use the income pro forma, and I agree with your income pro forma numbers, but again, I don't necessarily feel comfortable using the income this year since the property was still 21% vacant. So,
Has the property
and the
recently?
one other thing I had a thought on, if you're, yeah, I know you showed that the rent that they were charging, but, I don't know that the rent that they're charging is actually the rent that they're getting, especially if these are current rents. I don't know what, concessions that they're offering to the clients, to the actual, renters when they're, actually quoting the rent. They may be giving, concessions, 3-month concessions, 6-month concessions, in order to get those renters in the door. So market rent and actual rent sometimes don't line up.
Misha, does that mean that you did not have available to submit to the assessor the actual rent rolls as they presently are?
I have the year-end rent roll. I don't have current, no.
I have the as of January 1 rent roll. She
Right, I did have that, yep.
And on my pro
Have we
forma,
been, well,
I used those rents.
you did,
I did.
okay.
And
Now, I'm just trying to understand the objection Misha is raising. Is she simply saying, well, if you're using the actuals, then it should be at the 21% vacant, as opposed to what you did in your approach, which was to raise it up to what you consider the market. Is that where I'm just trying to find where the arguments are right now. That's all I'm trying to get the board.
Well, but my argument isn't that that it's a 20% vacancy. My argument is that the property was not necessarily stabilized as of 1/21 because the rent roll was still showing 21% vacancy. Typically, a property that's stabilized will run anywhere from 90 to, 96%, depending on market and issues in the marketplace. And COVID not, this is not a COVID argument, so there's nothing about vacancy loss or anything like that. This is more just bringing up the point that the property was not stabilized as of 1/21. So that income pro forma should not be taken into consideration.
there's always the stabilization argument, except for the fact that in the interest of fairness and equity to every taxpayer and every apartment owner across the board in Tulsa County, we have to assume when it's occupiable, it's listed for lease, it's available for someone to walk in and take that day, that it's valuable.
I thought we were stuck with what they provide us as the actual as of January 1/1, that we were just stuck with that. We get, because they often come in on older properties that we're dealing with, they often come in and say, oh my God, next year it's gonna be worse. We can tell that we're trending down, and we always say, sorry, you can come back next year and show us that, but we can't do anything except deal with the actual. So the question I'm raising is, do we have to be the other way too? They show us, when you say it is stabilized, is she saying this is new construction and they're still filling up for the first time? I'm just trying to understand. Is that it?
Okay, there's always a lease up period of time for apartments.
But these aren't new.
These are brand new, and they have, in terms of how fast a lease up goes, it usually takes a couple of years in most cases to get to that maximum optimal occupancy.
Yes.
However, when we are valuing it, we have to, and our office policy is, it's most likely driven by statute, we are going to value it as stabilized if it is occupiable. And that is in the interest of fairness to everyone. So when someone comes in and says, well, we're having management problems, we're having high turnover, we're still valuing it as stabilized. When someone comes in and says it's brand new and we haven't quite leased up fully yet, the fact is, I gave it 14% vacancy. We're talking about a few points in vacancy.
Yeah.
And right now, I know we have to start about 1/1, but just as an example, it's at 14% now. So just to show you how fast it stabilizes.
Sure.
Okay, we're about a year into lease up and it's hitting market
Okay.
vacancy.
just want to be clear about that. I understand the point you're making, and I think, it's the point the assessor's office often makes one or the other with us. Misha, we've got to come to some resolution on this. I think at least we know the numbers now. After the informal on these two protested parts of your economic unit, she's requesting. We're clear about that now. And those are obviously not the ones you're requesting. Is it possible for you to come up with a number for each of the protested properties only that you are requesting for your client? I'm just trying to get something the board can say, that number or this number. Can you?
Okay, well, when I was discussing it with, I'm not sure I'm not sure that we're gonna be able to do that. What I had suggested earlier was something that Sarah said she really didn't feel comfortable doing. So because she didn't believe in the construction argument, the soft cost construction argument, so I'm not sure that,
Well,
those numbers are.
Sarah's not gonna agree with you. I'm clear about that. I'm just gonna give you a chance.
Okay,
You a chance.
I'll go with
Give
that.
me
So
some
on
numbers based on.
the parcel ending in 44500. I took the actual value, and I took out the land value of 240,000. And I came up with a value, the improvement value of 2,130,000, and then I took 10% for soft cost. So that requested value would then be construction value of 1,191,700 plus 240,000. So.
And add those two numbers and you come up with
1,431,700. 431,700.
Now, that was the one that we were reading as 4500, which is the smaller parcel on the in dispute today. Got that one.
Correct.
That's the number you want, and she wants really almost $1 million more is what she's asking for, 2,154,000. Is that your understanding also?
Yes.
Okay, what about the other one here, 14, or on the protest numbers, 1430, your property number's 3890.
Okay, so on this one, the adjusted value is 4,091,300. If you subtract the land value of that one of 240,000, that brings you an improvement value of 3,851,300. If you multiply that by 90% to get a 10% value, that's an improvement value of 3,466,100. And then you add back in the land value, and that gives you a value of 3,706,100.
Okay, we got numbers anyway, board. Did you guys understand that? I was just trying to get to something we could discuss. The difference is substantial in both cases, but not as well on the smaller parcel under protest. It is almost.
I do that right?
Yeah, I think you did 100,000 difference, wasn't it?
Okay.
No, it was almost $1 million. No, now my addition's going wrong. I'm sorry. Anyway, the one number on the larger parcel, which was the first, the protest number 1413 that she's asking for is 3,706,100, and the assessor is still asserting about 300,000 more. She wants 4,091,003.
Yeah, right, I did do it.
On the other one, it is a difference of between 1,431,700 and 2,154,000. So that's almost $600,000 difference, $500,000. So
I did that one wrong.
Can I insert?
you did one wrong, okay.
Yeah. I did, yeah, the 44,500 one, I didn't calculate that one right. That one, I should be requesting 1,677,000. So that's my apologies there, not 1,431,000.
Okay, give it to me again. 1,677,000. 677,000. Okay, that comes in a little better, and that is,
Yeah.
my viewpoint in terms of just closer. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to get the amount of the dispute under discussion clear for the board. That was all I was trying to do there. Okay. Let's put it this way. I'm a little bit, okay. I understand where the assessor is coming from on the stabilization argument. I'm a little more generous to new construction that they still haven't leased up fully. So I could probably go a little bit towards that.
Is that on protest 1413?
Well, it essentially is working on both of them because they're not leased up fully.
The
The
thing,
whole economic unit is.
the thing for me, if we look at the rent comparable,
Okay.
they are less than any of the comparables that we have per unit. If I'm looking at it correctly, there were 136,300,
Yeah,
where the others that they've compared them to are higher than that.
well, except the reunion's right on top.
Where's the
of it.
reunion? It's
Yeah.
140.
But it's on an older property. In fact, is it really that old? 1917 was the year built?
Reunion was just remodeled and
Oh,
is.
okay. I was gonna say,
It is the premier penthouse property downtown Tulsa.
yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah,
I thought it
it's-
was worth more.
It's high living over there, so.
Yeah, that would be my impression. So those are the two closest, but the point you're making, Ruth, is correct.
They are lower.
Yeah.
I would move to sustain.
Okay, you're willing to sustain. Charles, I was willing to give him a little bit. Where are you on this?
I don't think I'm willing to sustain,
Okay,
but I'm not sure.
well, did you get, I think I got the two numbers. Did you understand which one she's asking for? I can give it to you now. Sure.
Working off the protest 14.
Okay, 1413, the number that the assessor wants that we wrote in, it was 4,091,300. We sustained, that's the number. The number she's asking for, as she went through it again, when I asked it, was 3,706,100. So there's about, 300,000 there difference. On the other one, the difference is now down to well, also about maybe 250, but those are the differences.
Give me the number for the second unit.
Okay, my way of thinking, go back to your protest number, they're using other numbers, but it's easier. 1413,
I got that.
you got that one. So it's 1415, which is the smaller parcel. She's, the assessor says if we sustain, it will be at 154,000. If we change any, we'll be going towards the requested number of 1,677,000. Do you want me to propose some numbers, since I seem to be willing to move down a little bit? But do the rest of you, but to be clear, Ruth's willing to sustain, okay? I understand that. I'm willing to move a little bit down.
Well, I am too. On
That's where-
protest 1413,
Yes,
some folks with a lot of wisdom took it 4,589,000 down to 4,091,000.
yeah,
So you're willing to come off of that a little?
I'm willing to come off of that a little bit more. She wants 3,706,1.
Well, half hour ago, I wrote down 3,000,009.
Okay, that's a good number for me. If you want to move it, I will support that.
I would move that we set the fair value at 3,090,000.
This is protest number 1413 on our agenda. Misha, this is your real estate account number 3890. We are now adjusting it to a fair market value of $3,900,000 if the board votes to do that. Charles has moved it, I will second it. We'll vote as the roll is called to adjust to $3,900,000 even.
Dr. Tetchell,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwilling,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
We have adjusted that one, Misha. Now we're going to the other one, Charles, did you have a number? The number that if we sustain will be $2,154,000. She's requesting $1,677,000. Did you have another number floating around in there somewhere?
Now I had the 2,154,000.
Okay, so if you want to sustain it, Ruth wants to sustain it too, so you guys could do that. I would be willing to go to 2 million flat. That's giving them a little bit, but not much.
So
What, is that okay? Okay, I will move that we adjust on protest number 1415, that property residential account, Misha, is 4500. And we are I'm proposing we adjust to 2 million even.
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded to adjust to 2 million. Vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Tetchell,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderwilling.
yes.
Ms. Gaines.
So ordered by action of the board, these are adjusted. We'll go to the next thing in just a minute, Misha. I gotta write my thing here. Still counts, still right. There we go. Even if I'm scrolling, it is still. Leasing up. Or new apartments leasing up. All right, now let's see, what are the supporting paperwork? Did you get everything I had? Did you get this one? Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Misha, we're ready to go forward here with our agenda to
Okay,
next item. Well, actually, we got to back up and pick up one since on the agenda, it was the Village East properties were split. We're now looking at our agenda item 1414 on your residential or real estate account number. Those final four digits are 8730 Tulsa, PA.
Okay.
8 Tulsa LLC.
yes,
Okay. And I'm looking here at the formal protest paperwork. Let me make sure I'm reading it correctly, and the assessor and I are agreeing on what's on the front page here. Yeah, looks like we are. Okay, 22 million. It was 22,418,900 was previous. They're proposing to leave it at that. You are appealing that it should go down to 22 million even, that is subtracting the 418.9 as per the client's request. Okay, do you wish to take us through anything else that we have here attached?
no, sir, I don't, the client really just wanted to, make sure that we had an order with the value on it to be able to have for the record.
Okay, so he had, well, there's no particular argument about value that
No,
we
sir.
need to make?
No, sir.
Okay, well, we're gonna be inclined to sustain then, is my guess. All right, I move that we sustain this value at $22,418,900 unless I hear objection from the board.
Did we want to hear from the assessor?
I think we just saw him not, but please, if you wish, go ahead. You don't have to present, but to identify yourself and say that that's what you want.
Yes, Zach Lay, Tulsa County Assessor's Office, requested to sustain the value. Also to note that this property ownership has changed. So as of the first of the year and as of the date of the formal appeal and subject to this appeal, it was Continental 302 Fund LLC for the record. But everything is good on that.
Okay,
So we request to sustain.
all right. I make my previous motion, then again, I move that we sustain it at $22,418,900 as the fair market value this day. Is there a second?
Second the motion?
It's been moved and seconded to sustain. The vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchum,
Yes,
Mr. Vanderwiller.
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
this is the fair market value. Okay, now is this,
Oh, to get.
I took off all your antibodies. You're welcome. All right, Minnie, we kind of caught up with our agenda. We're down to agenda item 1489, Citigroup of Vista Shadow LLC, and 1490, which is also your group at Vista Shadow LLC. I assume this is an economic unit. Misha, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, how do you want to proceed on these?
Well, as you know, we've talked about this property more than once. And once again, the property is underperforming. Occupancy on the property at the beginning of this year was 35%. When I talked to them, I think in April, they said it was still 35%. They have, in addition, they've had some significant issues. They had a lot of problems with the snowstorm and the ice storm that we had. So they were requesting another value reduction from prior years, and I realized that you guys have given the client several reductions over the past few years. So that's not an issue. I presented a pro forma with actuals showing a value of $6.6 million and a pro forma of $13.8 million. And I went back and kind of, after Sarah and I talked, and my second valuation, the formal valuation, I'm requesting more of a value of like 16.8. And that's after adjusting expenses a little bit downward. The other thing that I have that I provided was a note from their restoration group showing that out of 593 units, they were going to have to do restoration work on over 400 of those vacant units due to the ice storm and pipes breaking and other water issues as a result of that. And that's what the information I'm providing.
Okay.
Total units in the complex.
There's 593 total.
Misha, can I ask a quick question on that?
Yes,
That restoration
absolutely.
thing? Thank you. Of those 400 units, how many of those are currently occupied? Do you know? Because
The property is at 40, I don't know that for sure. I don't. I just know that at 35% vacant, there's not a lot.
yeah, I'm trying to do the math here. 593 units and 35%. It's 35% occupied is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, Yes, they're 35% occupied, so that's 207, is that right?
207 units occupied.
Yeah. Mhm.
Was there
So
a
I'm
mass-
assuming some of those are probably vacant, but some of them aren't.
Was there a mass?
So they're gonna have to-
exodus on this property?
Ice storm, it sounds
That's
right.
gonna be a question for Misha.
Okay,
Right.
Misha, do you know why they're running this high of, vacancies?
I think this property, over I think they had, between all the damage and all the ice damage, they have that vacancy in addition. I think over the last few years, they continue to have vacancy problems as a result of renting and having to throw people out. And, just continued vacancy due to the condition of the property and the deferred maintenance. I know that they had high hopes to be able to go in and turn a lot of units and be able to upgrade it, but if they don't have the cash flow and the rent, they really can't do that. So that in turn leads them to not be able to lure good tenants to live there.
Your sense of the documents you added here, that you robust restoration, is this
Yeah.
a bid, an agency that has already bid on doing renovation for the property?
No, I think this restoration alone, that was a loan for the ice, for the damage from the freeze.
So it's just a report of what they've had to spend, but I'm trying to understand, does that mean those units are available for occupancy as you understand it now?
Well, they weren't available as of occupancy as of when I spoke to him, which I think was March, right, March or April. Some of them may have been occupiable, but there was, a lot of water damage. But and my guess is some of the units didn't have the water, didn't have the pipes break, but as a result of the pipes breaking in other units, sustained water damage. And some more significant than others. I had requested a more detailed report, but did not get that as of the time of the hearing.
Okay, is I'm trying to understand what your request is that you want the board to try to do today on these two parcels.
Okay, on the one parcel, on parcel 23,200, I'm requesting a value of 13,630,000, and that's from the original value of 16,850,000.
Okay, that was 13 million, what again?
13,630,000.
Okay. And on the other one?
And then on the 0090 parcel, I'm requesting a value of 3,700,000.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure we got clear numbers before we begin more
That's fine.
extensive discussion of these two. Okay, Misha, what I guess I'm still asking, other than what you just said about water damage and maybe some of the units.
All right.
207 units occupied, that is that is a number you got from your owners, right?
Yes, I have a copy of that's actually, yeah, I had a copy of the rent roll and that was attached and that was as of 1/21.
Okay. So that means,
Actually 40% as of 1/21, but 35%, it was 40% as of 1/21 and 35% as of April 1st.
okay. Now, okay, and therefore, did you use the 35%? I'm just looking at the rough numbers you just quoted to me. Is that the way you got these numbers, the 13,630 and the 3,700,000?
No, sir, actually that's not. I use a pro forma with 10% vacancy and 40% expenses to
Okay,
get to the 17 million.
okay.
Which
Alright,
is more in line with the expenses that you would assume for a normal property, based on conversations that I've had with Sarah.
Okay, and so what you're saying is your recommendations are pro forma recommendations.
Correct, that's correct.
Okay. Sarah, we're gonna give you a shot at it in just a minute, but I want to give Charles and Ruth a chance to ask anything else that they thought of before we finish.
I've got one question. On the 2021 income capitalization approach. It's valued at 13,830,000. Is that including?
That was 15,630,000 as I understood it.
Well, I'm looking at pro forma, but how many,
Yeah, that was my original informal discussion, and then after talking with Sarah, I tried to make adjustments, because again, I realized the expenses on the property are higher, so I tried to make some adjustments that might be amenable to the board, and reflect more of market value rent, and expenses.
so, I don't know why I've written down 400 restoration. Is that units that got to be repaired?
That is units that had some sort of water damage and had to be repaired as a result of the ice and snow issues in February, March.
And they're not inhabitable right now, or habitable right?
I don't know if they're inhabitable at this moment. I don't know that.
Okay.
But that's the damage that they're reporting to you that you were using to make your adjustments, correct?
But as of January 1.
Misha, was that?
Right, no, the pro forma that I was using didn't have anything to do with the damages, because the damages as of 2021. The client wanted me to present that as an additional obstacle that they're facing this year, that they're going to have to deal with, and it's trying to explain additional vacancy.
Sure, got it.
But your corrected value, you believe the corrected value would be 13,630? How is that factored?
For the one.
How's that factored into your number here?
It doesn't factor in, I'm not factoring that in. I don't have any hard numbers on that, so I couldn't factor that into my valuation.
She just did pro formas on both of these parcels.
Correct.
Facts are.
And again, like Sarah said, on the other account, you can't use vacancy of what, 65%, or 65% vacancy to value a property on a pro forma, because that's not fair and equitable in the sense of all the properties that you're looking at.
Well, if you've got a major part of them that's been damaged, nobody's gonna live in them, so. Is that?
Well, that's true, but this,
But can we take that into consideration as of 1/1?
Well, but it's a good question. Misha, as I understand, with the information they provided you, the owners now, they told you that they only had 207 units occupied. They told you they
correct,
had.
it was 40% as of 1/1/21. And then when I spoke to them in March or April, or whenever I talked to them, when I first started looking at this for appeal, he said it was down to 35% occupied.
Yeah, I understand. I think what we're struggling with in the board here right now is it sounds like they didn't give you information that would, unless they gave it to Sarah, we'll ask her in a minute, but that is, they're asking us to consider things that they are not offering material evidence to the board about. That is, other than your report of their conversation with you, they said that with all these units are damaged, they said it's related to the ice storm. It's not even that I'm questioning that as much as I'm just saying, but we have no estimates of what it would cost to fix all that for you. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I have no information regarding cost to repair other than a general, hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is not, it's not admissible since it's not really solid numbers and I have nothing to back it up. So my presentation is really basically more based on the income pro forma as of 1/1/21. Because those are solid numbers that you can look at. I've got the rent roll attached. I have the income valuation. I have the actual financials included.
Okay. got that, and I understand what you've done, and I understand that is a normal approach. I understand that. It was just the mention of these other things without material evidence is difficult, I think, for the board. Anyway, I'm gonna ask, Sarah to go ahead. I'm sorry, Ruth, did you have a
I just
question?
want, why do we have 2 units here? There's
Two parcels.
2 parcels.
I think it's just the way they've got on the tax roll, but I don't know, Sarah, you can explain that? Why did they divide Shadow Mountain into 2 parcels?
I'll show you. It's just like any other property. Sometimes the economic unit, the business or apartment complex is built into 2 different. So here's one parcel that's not in blue. And then here's another one that's in blue.
But
So
both of them
these,
under protest today, right?
they're both under protest. Yes, sir. Here's the entrance. Here's some of the apartments. Here's the rest of the apartments. So this is a parcel by itself.
Probably they were built separately, is my guess, Ruth.
Okay.
All right, Sarah, give us your best approach to this from the assessor's viewpoint.
All right.
Nothing, just paper flying about. Thank you. My hands, everything seems slippery today.
So, this property has had some problems historically. We've been to board, I think, every year since it was purchased in 2015, I believe.
I think you're correct.
However, here's the property details. I have a picture of the map, the same map we're looking at here,
Yeah,
to give you a general view at 61st Memorial, border there.
Yeah.
Here's, to give you an idea of the building materials and what the apartment complex looks like, it's mostly rock veneer and wood siding, 2 stories. Some of the improvements are 3 stories. I'm not sure, but I think it might be the biggest apartment complex in Tulsa County. If not, it's pretty close.
Yeah.
590.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, it's huge. I would like to class this as a C, but I'm unable to in its current condition. I feel it's probably a D, it falls within a D class property. Right now, they could cure that because of its location. It's a good location still.
yeah.
But yeah, it has fallen into disrepair. However, there was a sale in 2015 and its condition has not, I would say, significantly changed or declined to my knowledge. I was out there in 2018 and visually inspected it. At that time, it was the same as it was when I was out there last week. They purchased it in 2015. I cannot speak for that date, but I can say the nature of some of the foundation problems, roof problems, siding, et cetera, at the time of purchase were probably in about the same condition they were in 18 and into this year. And they bought it for $27,480,000 per assessor record. That's about $46,000 a unit that they invested in this property. So we currently have it valued at about $38,500, which is below what they paid for it, by $8,000 or so per unit. And the reason we have it valued a little lower is because a combination of appraisers at the informal level lowering it and the board lowering it a little, and it's just adjusted down since the year of the sale.
Yeah.
And we've tried to keep an eye on this property. We make sure and go out there and walk it every year and see what's happening because we're interested in seeing if there's going to be some renovations. There's always talk of it. And there've been a few building permits and things that have never really been done. There was a building permit for $5 million, I think in 2016 or 2017. They sunk about $5 million into it, but that'd be the equivalent of you remodeling your guest bathroom. That property is so huge, it's not a lot of money to sink into it. So. But that's just a little history on it. So I've got my income pro forma on the next page here. Now, this is where mine does not align with Keisha's. Because like she said, we're in line on expenses, we're in line, on our cap is exactly the same. But look at the potential gross income on this property. I have calculated at $5,554,536 a year. She's calculated a little different. I don't use the square foot rent price. I use the actual market rent per unit based on the type of unit. So I have a big list of each type of unit and what the market rent is for each one, and I add it all up and annualize it. That's how I come to this number. So mine's not based on square foot. I don't know of any apartments in Tulsa County that rent for 31 cents a square foot as it's listed on her performer here. I don't know of any under 50 cents a square foot. So I'm not sure if this potential gross rental income she has listed on hers, I couldn't speak to where it's coming from really, but mine is 5.5 million. I give it a 15% vacancy collection, which is a little more than she's given it here. Per the financials that were provided, I added in additional income, which is utility reimbursements from tenants. All said and done, we're exactly in line, apples to apples on our income approach, except for the potential gross income, which we just talked about this in the last formal. I realize they're struggling, but I can't go give them 35% occupancy. In fairness to other properties that are going out there and hustling and putting the money toward it and figuring out a way to, but keep their value and hold their value and maintain it and things like that. And it's had the same ownership since 2015. And we really haven't seen any moves toward improving or curing the problems they have going on, although we're hopeful. But with an actual market pro forma, we're coming out with a market value of $28,454,000, which is about what it sold for back in 2015. My pro forma indicates that we currently have it discounted at about $6 million due to some of its problems. I have sales comparisons listed here. Just briefly, these are actually all really good sales comparisons. I would say, except for the last two listed, I could easily cross out the last two and really focus on the top 6 sales comparisons I have here, because the Park 1010 and Summer Park are in way better condition. But Silver Creek's crossings at Silver Crook, Oak, Stonebrook Gated Community, and crossings at Oak Brook, the top 4 here. I'll circle those values so I can show you where I'm at. I circled them here and drawn an arrow to them. You can see their price per unit on the sale. It's coming in between 32,000 and 45,000, somewhere in that range. Now we currently have this property valued at 38, which is about in the median, in the middle of those 4 comparable properties. So I've got sales comps supporting the current value, if not more. And then in conclusion, the assessor opinion of value is $28,450,000. However, we just request that would be not including the discount we've already given it over the years, which I'm just requesting to sustain, that the board sustain the value today in support of helping this property and continuing to help them in their efforts to improve and cure some of their problems. But the fact is, it's mortgaged for $29 million. The comparable sales support $28 million, and my income pro forma by market parameters supports $28 million. And if you look on here, you can see this is a really good indicator to the per unit value that the income and the mortgage supports and the comparable sales. They all support about $46,000, $48,000 a unit on valuation on this property, which is much higher than what we have it right now.
Can it go up 850,200 from last year?
Did we, I'm sorry.
Did you increase it from
Did you?
last year?
Oh, we did, just because there was a pretty sharp market value increase in apartments across the board. COVID, I know I've brought this to the board before, COVID had the opposite effects on apartment owners that it did with, say, hotels and retail and office space. Apartments are full, they're thriving, they're charging more money. There's not much out there, so there's a lot of demand and not much supply that's driving values up. So we did value it just a nominal amount more this year versus last year. But also taking into consideration the fact that if the apartment complex was in good operable condition and didn't have so many things that need to be cured on it, it would have driven it up more than $800,000 market value. I can say that with confidence.
Charles, did you have a question of either of the presentation? My own feeling is the best we could do would be to take the 800,000 that they raised them out for. I wouldn't be willing to lower the other one at all. It does seem to me this property is in need of some vigorous investment if they're going to stay in the market. And we have heard this story. It's kind of the same song, second or third verse now. Misha, do you understand what my problem is of trying to, if it's the reason I questioned you as hard as I did about show me how much they're willing to put in, and they've already begun in reinvesting in this property, and
I absolutely understand, sir.
yeah, okay. So that's the best I can propose. I'd be willing to, we essentially leave them where they were last year.
16 million.
Yeah. But that's the most I can do. 16 million on the one and 6 million on the other part. Tell them they've got a Fisher cut bait, as we used to say in the Ozarks.
So are you saying 16,850 for both or just?
No, I'm dealing with both. I would vote to sustain the one that is 1490, but 1489. I'm willing to go back to last year. My group picked up the difference that the assessor is proposing. I'm willing to go back to last year, which was 16 million on that one. It went up. I understand why, yeah, I understand why they're proposing an 850,000 increase in comparison to other apartments. I agree with you, Sarah. But I'm willing to give one more year and just say, hey, you know, either you gotta make some serious investments here, you got a big apartment complex, you're right, it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ideal location for apartments, and I think you're right, COVID's supported the market, not damaged it.
I agree, and
Anyway.
I'd like to see him come back next year with, as year after year, in my notes on the, we've requested, cost to cure,
Yeah.
some foundation reports.
Absolutely.
We just haven't received that documentation, and it'd be really, really helpful in making their case if we could.
Here. And Misha, I think you do your client a favor to give them that information from the board to say, come in with some cost.
I pass it on every year, and I will certainly pass it on once again.
Well, you're doing your job, that's all you can do. All right, I will make a motion, so we move on with this one. I'm now talking about protest 1489, the first one, which would be the account number 3200. And I'm proposing that we adjust it back to last year at 16 million even. Is there support for my motion?
Second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll vote as the roll is called to adjust last year's 16 million figure as the fair market value.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Willen,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
Yes, this is the fair market value. The property needs some investment. Now, the second item on our agenda, the same property, which is protest number 1490 or real estate account ending in 0090. I propose that we sustain the 6 million as the fair market value for this apartment complex.
Second motion.
It's been moved and seconded to sustain. We'll vote again as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes, this
Mr. Ben,
is, I'm sorry.
Mr. Van Willen,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
This is the fair market value as sustained by the board today at 6 million even. All right, I think we're down to the last item on our agenda. It is 111 West Fifth LLC. It is on previously for 11,017,300. After the informal, it was adjusted down to 10,370,000. She is appealing that the board consider adjusting it down further to 9,453,000. All right, Nisha, tell us about this property.
Well, I think we actually came to an agreement on this property.
Okay, that's great. What do we need then?
The assessor would like to propose 9,050,000 even.
9,050,000. Nisha, is that what you were expecting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then that is an agreement. I will move that we accept this recommendation of 9,050,000 by agreement on this property. I moved it.
I second. I'm sorry.
This is, vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Willen,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines,
Yes.
This is the fair market value by agreement. Misha, I think that completes it all.
Yes, sir.
I think next year, if you're gonna do it this way, I'm going to insist on video phones, just so we can see you.
Next year I'll be up, no worries.
Okay. Take care of yourself.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Sure.
Goodbye.
Oh, here. Oh, what a day this has been for me anyway, probably for all of you.
I move that we adjourn.
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, adjourned before the chair leaves. We'll vote as the roll is called.
Dr. Ketchel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Willen,
Yes.
Ms. Gaines.
Yes.
So ordered by